She hummed. That was the first sound I heard from her in 7 days. Not a word. Not a cough. Not even a sigh. Just humming. A bright, almost cheerful little tune, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent a full week pretending I didn't exist. The kicker? She did it while slicing mango, her favorite fruit, which she only ever buys when she's trying to celebrate a win. A win. As if ignoring your husband for a week like a piece of broken furniture counts as a victory. My name's Elliott, and I'm exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Soul tired. You don't really notice how much noise a person makes until they suddenly go silent. And let me tell you, when the person you sleep next to, eat with, share a mortgage with, just stops speaking, you start questioning everything. Your memory, your sanity, your worth. Day 1, I thought she was having a bad day. Maybe work stress. I gave her space. Day 2, I tried a soft joke, something about the neighbor's cat screaming like it owed taxes. Nothing. Day 3, I asked, "Are we okay?" No response. Just eyes on the phone. Thumb scrolling. Like I was background static. By day 4, I was whispering apologies for things I hadn't done. By day 6, I was Googling emotional punishment in marriages. By day 7, I was talking to the coffee machine just to hear my own voice. And then the humming started. Bright. Carefree. Mango slicing music. I should have left right then, honestly. Walked out, slammed the door, and never looked back. But no, I did something stupider. I smiled. I asked, "What's got you in such a good mood today?" She looked me in the eye, the first time all week, and said one word. "Oh, nothing." Then she walked off, like I'd asked her how the weather was. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loud, not angry, quietly, like a string pulled too tight finally giving way. I realized I'd spent the past 7 days chasing her approval like a dog begging for scraps. But you know what dogs do when they're ignored long enough? They stop coming. And that same afternoon, I got a message. From someone she really didn't expect. Not an ex. Not a crush. An old friend. And the moment she saw that person walk through our door, she broke her silence. 7 minutes. Flat. But it wasn't to greet them. It was to stop me. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there with my eyes open in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic sounds of her breath like it was some kind of mockery. She'd fallen asleep easily, too easily, after 7 days of calculated silence and a final cherry on top, that damn humming. I wanted to scream. Instead, I got up around 3:17 a.m., walked to the kitchen, and stood barefoot on the cold tiles, just thinking. That was when the idea hit me. Not revenge. Not cheating. Just disruption. A jolt. Something to flip the script. The universe must have heard me. Because when I opened my phone, there it was, a message request from Owen. Not some random guy, but my old friend from high school. The kind of friend who knew every weird version of me I'd ever been and still wanted to meet for lunch. We hadn't spoken in maybe 9 years. He said he was passing through and wanted to catch up. "Quick coffee," he wrote. I stared at that message like it was some kind of escape hatch. I wasn't sure what Layla would say if I told her. But then again, she hadn't said a word to me in a week. So I didn't tell her. I replied yes. When the doorbell rang the next afternoon, I was already dressed. Not for Owen, but for myself. Clean shave, fresh shirt, cologne I hadn't used in months. I felt human. I opened the door and greeted Owen like we'd just graduated yesterday. He looked older, sure, but still carried that effortless charm. We were laughing within 2 minutes. Actually laughing. It felt like oxygen. He sat down in our living room. We traded stories, talked about terrible jobs, and failed first dates. And that's when I heard her footsteps. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. She walked into the room slowly, hairstyled, makeup on, wearing that blouse she only pulls out when she wants attention. She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there by the staircase. Then, like a light switch had been flipped, she spoke. "Hey, sorry, I didn't realize we had company." 7 days of silence. Broken in 7 seconds. I smiled politely and introduced Owen. She walked over, extended her hand, and asked if he wanted coffee. She never even asked me if I wanted coffee anymore. I nodded along to their small talk, but inside, something strange was happening. I was watching her, really watching her, and I realized she wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was strategic. That silence hadn't been random. It was control, a twisted little power game. And the moment she felt the spotlight shift away from her, she panicked. Her smile grew tighter. Her eyes darted toward me between sentences. She kept touching her necklace, a nervous tick. She laughed too loud at Owen's joke about his terrible Airbnb. I just watched, quietly, like I wasn't the one being played anymore. When Owen left an hour later, she didn't go back to ignoring me. She asked what we talked about. She asked if I was going to hang out with him again. She asked if he was married. And I realized something. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing control over me. And that night, when she tried to cuddle me for the first time in what felt like a month, I did something I never thought I'd do. I turned over. I didn't say a word. Let her wonder for once. The shift in the air was instant. She flinched like I'd slapped her, even though I didn't say a word. For 7 days, she weaponized silence like it was a scalpel, slicing through our connection bit by bit. And now that I gave her a taste of it in return, even for one night, she was rattled. Not angry. Not sad. Just off balance. Like a tightrope walker who suddenly looked down. The next morning, she was in the kitchen before me. That never happens. Usually I'm the one making coffee, standing at the counter hoping for a glance, a nod, anything to feel like I'm not invisible. But this time, she was there, cooking eggs. Cooking. Actual food. Like we were playing house again. I walked in, gave her a neutral morning, and she whipped her head around with that way too casual smile. Want breakfast? It felt rehearsed. Like she was reading off a script she hadn't practiced in years. I sat down without answering. I watched her work. She moved around the kitchen like someone trying to reverse engineer affection. Like if she just did the right steps, the feelings would fall back into place. The smell of eggs, the sound of the pan sizzling, it was all too normal. Too forced. Like she was trying to erase the last week. When she placed the plate in front of me, I noticed she'd made it exactly the way I like it. Even the toast, buttered to the edges. I didn't touch it. She noticed. What's wrong? She asked, leaning against the counter, arms folded. Like she had the right to ask that now. I looked her straight in the eye and said, nothing. One word. Her favorite trick, thrown back at her. She didn't like it. The silence that followed wasn't the same as before. This time, she wasn't in control of it, and it scared her. I could see it in the way her hand trembled as she picked up her glass. She didn't know who I was anymore. For once, I didn't either. The rest of the day, she followed me around like a ghost with a checklist. Asked if I wanted to watch a show together. Mentioned that her co-workers were asking about us. Even brought up taking a weekend trip. Just the two of us. But I'd already made plans. When I told her I was meeting Owen for lunch again, she froze mid-sentence. You are, she said, tone flat. Yeah, I replied casually. He invited me. Thought it'd be nice. She tried to hide the twitch in her eye, but it was there. That subtle flare of something, jealousy, panic, resentment, maybe all three. Did you tell him about us? She asked. Us. I tilted my head. I thought there wasn't really an us this past week. She didn't have a response to that. And that's when I knew I'd finally touched something real beneath the facade. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When someone uses silence to punish you, it's not about peace. It's about power. It's about watching you flail, apologize, beg for warmth. But I wasn't begging anymore. And she knew it. When I left the house that day, I didn't look back. Not because I was done. Not yet. But because for the first time in a long time, she was the one standing in the doorway waiting. And I wasn't going to make it easy. Lunch with Owen wasn't anything groundbreaking. 2 guys, 2 sandwiches, way too much sarcasm. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I had to measure every word or tiptoe around emotional landmines. We talked about work, old stories from school, even some awkward remember when moments involving Layla, though I avoided the present. I wasn't ready to spill yet. I wanted to observe, to collect pieces of my reality before handing any of it over. But I noticed something strange when I got home that day. Layla's car wasn't in the driveway. The lights were off. It felt empty. And for a moment, I wondered if she left. Just packed up and decided it wasn't worth the effort anymore. I didn't know if I'd feel relieved or destroyed. But as I stepped inside, I saw something on the hallway table that didn't belong there. Her phone. Face down, no lock screen notification, which was odd. Layla never went anywhere without her phone. It was practically fused to her hand. And the fact that she left it behind? It wasn't just careless. It felt intentional. Like bait. I picked it up. My hand shook a little, and not because I was afraid of what I might find, but because deep down, I already knew. I didn't snoop. I didn't unlock it. I just stared at the reflection of my own face on the black screen and asked myself the real question. Why now? Why the sudden affection, the breakfast, the questions? Was it guilt or fear? That night, she came home late, hair tousled, cheeks flushed, claiming she'd gone for a long drive to clear her head. She never did that before. She wasn't the driving to think type. She was the stay home and punish silently type. And when I asked how the drive went, she paused like she forgot to make up a story, then gave me that rehearsed half-smile again. It helped. I was just thinking about us. Her voice cracked just slightly on the word us. That's how I knew something was unraveling beneath her surface. She was losing grip. And then, like it was nothing, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. I made an appointment for couples counseling. I blinked. The same woman who ignored me for a week without explanation was now proposing therapy? I didn't respond. I just looked at her, looked at the envelope, and nodded slowly like I was trying to decode some hidden meaning. Because there was one. Layla didn't believe in counseling. Said once that therapy was just complaining for money. So why now? I took the envelope, opened it. The appointment was 2 weeks away. But the date on the booking? It had been made 4 days ago, right in the middle of her silent treatment. That meant she'd planned this whole arc. The silence, the humming, the breakfast, the fake friendliness, the accidental phone left behind. It was a script. But what was it leading to? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about how silence was never about distance. It was about timing. And I had a terrible feeling that whatever she was waiting for, whatever move she thought she was making, it hadn't happened yet. But it was coming. And she thought I wouldn't see it. For the next 2 days, she acted like the wife I used to know, or maybe the version she thought I wanted to see. There was breakfast again, little comments about us and our future, random questions like, do you think we fell into a routine? Or what would you do differently if we could start fresh? It all sounded caring on the surface, but it didn't feel real. It felt like watching someone rehearse lines they didn't believe in, hoping the audience wouldn't notice the cracks in their voice. But I noticed. I noticed everything. The sudden extra long showers. The way she double-checked the locks at night, even though I always do it. The glances she gave her phone, which was suddenly never left unattended again. She even changed the passcode. I didn't ask why. I just watched. The night before the scheduled counseling session, she sat across from me on the couch and said something that nearly made me laugh out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully scripted. I know I've been distant, she said softly, looking at her hands. But I just want us to get back to where we were before everything got messy. Before what got messy? Before the week she decided I didn't deserve her voice? Before her mood switched faster than the weather? Before I found myself begging the damn coffee machine to respond? She wasn't talking about us. She was talking about her control. She was trying to put the pieces back in place. And suddenly, I realized, this therapy session wasn't her offering a solution. It was her laying the groundwork for a performance, a narrative, and I was supposed to show up looking broken, apologetic, guilty, except I wasn't playing that role anymore. So I made a call. No, not to a lawyer, not to Owen, not even to my sister, who would have told me I was being too passive for not already flipping a table. I called a private investigator. It felt dirty, I'm not gonna lie, like I was crossing a line. But I also knew, deep in my gut, that I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't the crazy one. The timing, the silence, the performance, the phone being left behind, the changed password, none of it was random. Something was being covered. And I needed the truth, not from her mouth, but from someone who gets paid to dig it up without flinching. The PI's name was Angela. No nonsense, sharp as a blade, and oddly comforting. I told her everything in a voice I barely recognized. Hoarse from days of overthinking, quiet from months of walking on eggshells. She didn't blink. I've seen this before, she said. People don't just go cold and then warm back up out of nowhere. That's not reflection. That's redirection. Exactly. So while Layla prepared her big emotional reveal at therapy, I gave Angela 3 names I'd overheard in casual conversations over the last few months. A coworker named Damon, her boss Mitchell, and a friend from yoga named Camille, who always seemed to text Layla at night, but never during the day. Angela said she'd start digging that night. And just like that, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not hope, not rage, clarity. The silence wasn't the real betrayal. It was the cover for something else. And soon, I'd know exactly what. The night before the counseling session, Layla set the table for dinner. Candles, music, real plates instead of takeout containers. The last time she did that was our anniversary, 2 years ago. I sat across from her, watching her move with precision, everything choreographed like she'd spent the whole day practicing. She asked me about my day. She complimented my shirt. She even reached for my hand, and for a brief second, I almost believed she meant it. But then I remembered what Angela said on the phone that afternoon. I found something. I'll send you screenshots tonight. Angela's voice had been calm, but I could tell she was holding something back, like even she was surprised. I didn't push her. I wanted to see the truth in black and white. So I played along at dinner. I smiled. I asked Layla about the therapy session. She said she was hopeful and wanted us to go in with an open mind. Her tone was soft, but her eyes were studying me, like she was still trying to read the script I hadn't written. That night, after she went to bed, I sat on the couch in the dark and opened the email from Angela. It didn't take long to find what mattered. The coworker, Damon? Harmless. Happily married. Clean as a whistle. Her boss, Mitchell? Bit of a creep. A few flirty texts months ago, nothing current. But Camille? Camille wasn't just a yoga friend. Camille was the girlfriend of a man named Levi, who worked in Layla's building. Camille had no idea that while she was sending Layla affirmations and heart emojis, Layla was sending Levi selfies taken in our bedroom mirror. Flirty captions, secret location tags, late-night photos of glasses clinking over candlelight, and none of them were ever shared with me. Angela confirmed what I didn't want to admit. There had been meetings, hotels, at least 3, booked under different names. And the kicker? One of those hotel nights happened during her silent treatment. While I was pacing around the kitchen wondering if I said something wrong, she was out, not driving to clear her head, but meeting someone else behind my back. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal she rehearsed. I closed the laptop and sat there in silence. Not because I was in shock. That part had passed. But because now I understood the real reason behind her performance. The therapy session? That wasn't about healing. That was her insurance policy. A paper trail. Something she could later point to and say, "See? I tried." She wanted the upper hand. The sympathy. Maybe even legal leverage, if things got messy. But now I had the one thing she didn't expect. The truth. And I wasn't going to confront her with it. Not yet. Because if she wanted to act like this was theater, she had no idea how good I could be at writing the final scene. I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken. That part had already burned itself out. But because I was calculating. Every silence, every smirk, every perfectly timed act of affection over the past month. It all lined up now. Her sudden interest in counseling wasn't a peace offering. It was her preemptive shield. A setup. If I lost my mind, stormed out, filed for divorce, she'd cry on cue, show the receipts, say she tried everything. I could already see her crocodile tears rehearsed in the mirror. So I got ahead of it. I printed the screenshots from Angela. Not all of them. Just enough to prove everything without turning it into a tabloid expose. The selfies. The hotel confirmations. One particular message she sent him at 1:42 a.m. that read, "He's asleep. I think he suspects something. But he won't leave, he's too soft." I folded the evidence, sealed it in a plain white envelope, and slipped it into my jacket. The next morning, she acted like it was our second honeymoon. Cheerful, glowing, making jokes about how nervous she was for therapy. Like it was a cute little couple's retreat and not the pit stop before a nuclear meltdown. The therapist's office was bright, cozy, way too gentle for what I was about to drop. Her name was Margot, calm, soft-spoken, probably used to hearing things fall apart between couples who still held hands while stabbing each other under the table. Layla started first. She talked about emotional distance, about how she felt unseen, how I had shut down, and she didn't know how to reach me. She cried on cue. Her voice cracked just enough to seem real. And Margot nodded along like this was just another Wednesday morning with the Smiths, or the Taylors, or whoever. Then it was my turn. I stayed quiet for a moment. Then I reached into my jacket and slid the envelope across the coffee table. Margot looked confused. Layla looked nauseous. I said, calmly, "Before we go any further, I want full honesty in the room. For both our sakes." Layla didn't touch the envelope. She didn't have to. She knew. Her face drained so fast, it was like watching color bleed out of a painting. She opened her mouth, probably to deny it, to twist it, to play the victim, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned to Margot. She planned this session 4 days into a week-long silent treatment, not to fix anything, but to lay down a false narrative. What's inside that envelope proves that during that silence, she was meeting another man. Repeatedly. In hotel rooms. While I was at home, making dinner for someone who wouldn't even look me in the eye. Margot froze. Layla started shaking her head slowly, trying to look heartbroken, but the act was breaking apart at the seams. I stood up. I don't need therapy. I needed the truth. And I have it now. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even wait for a reaction. I left her sitting there with the envelope, the therapist, and the mirror she'd spent weeks avoiding. And as I stepped into the cold air outside, I felt something unexpected. Not relief. Not anger. Just power. Because for the first time in years, the silence wasn't mine to suffer. It was hers to explain. That day marked the last time I ever saw her cry. Not because she didn't try again. Oh, she did. The text started that night. First came the confusion. Why would you humiliate me like that? Then came the guilt. You never gave me a chance to explain. And finally, the desperation. Can we please talk? Just once. Please. But I didn't answer. I didn't block her either. I wanted her words to sit there, unread, just like she left mine untouched for 7 days. Her silence had rules. Mine had consequences. I moved out within a week. I didn't even need to fight. The PI's report made the legal side smooth. She didn't want the truth going public. Turns out, she was less concerned with our marriage and more with her image. Fine. She could keep it. I got the dog. I got my peace. But more importantly, I got myself back. I spent the next few months rebuilding my life brick by brick. Not in some movie montage way, more like slow, uneven steps. Learning to cook for one. Taking the long route home without dreading who I'd see at the door. Going to sleep without wondering if I'd wake up to silence or betrayal. Owen and I started hanging out more, not because I needed a distraction, but because it reminded me of who I used to be. He introduced me to his cousin's book club. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but it turned out to be the best accidental decision of my life. Because that's where I met Erin. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't trying to fix anyone. She listened when I talked. She laughed with her whole body. And when I told her what had happened, she didn't flinch or pity me. She just said, "Good. You got out." Some people never do. Now we're not rushing anything. We're just existing. Quietly. Honestly. No games. No scripts. Just two people trying to build something real. And you know what? Silence still exists in my life. But it feels different now. It's the kind of silence you get when you're reading next to someone on the couch. Comfortable, peaceful, full. Not cold. Not weaponized. Just real. So yeah, my wife gave me the silent treatment to punish me.